Alright, hello and welcome back. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker. And it is a beautiful rainy day here in California. And today we are going through the protocols and servers room inside of the junior pentester pathway, specifically the network security module. And we have just a couple of more rooms inside of this module, and we'll be done with this module. And then we'll be moving on to the rest of the junior pentester pathway of TryHackMe. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into this room. If you're interested in Pentest Plus or Ethical Hacker or security analyst, any of these pathways, I do invite you to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell. When you do any of those things, you will get notified when a new video comes out. And if you're studying for any of those pathways, then this information will actually be good for your certification exams as well as your day-to-day job of a pen tester or ethical hacker, so on and so forth. So make sure that you subscribe and turn on that notification so that you get notified the next time a video comes out. And yeah, you'll get a bunch of great information and you'll learn faster and quicker and all that good stuff. And you'll get to being a masterful ethical hacker much faster. That being said, let's go into the introduction of this particular room for protocols and servers. We already did the protocols and servers part 1 that went through, telnet, HTTP. We went through all of these things in part 1. What we need to talk about now are the different attacks, I guess, that will be done for these or against these protocols. And it's the sniffing, man-in-the-middle, password attack, and any vulnerability that exists on these various protocols here. And really the big thing to understand is that when somebody attacks the system or the network that you're supposed to be protecting, or when you want to attack a system or a network, there's 3 general places that you can be trying to do damage or trying to find information or trying to protect, right? So there's the confidentiality of the system, the integrity of the system, and the availability of the system. And this could apply to the network. It could apply to the information, anything. The CIA triad is kind of the big triad that kind of oversees and governs most, if not all, things inside of cybersecurity. So how were things affected? How is the confidentiality of something affected? How is the integrity affected? How is the availability affected? And then this is another version, I guess I haven't heard of this one, which is the disclosure, alteration, and destruction triad, which, was anything disclosed, was anything altered, was anything destroyed. In this situation, it's same thing, right? Was anything disclosed? Confidentiality, was anything disclosed? Was anything altered, or was the integrity of a system changed so that it's no longer as strong or as viable? And then availability, was it, was the system down? Did they take information that they shouldn't have? Did they destroy information that they shouldn't have? So on and so forth. So these things kind of go hand in hand, as you can see. And the whole idea is, how do you protect against this, or how do you exploit these things? So these attacks directly affect the security of the system. For instance, network packet capture violates confidentiality and leads to the disclosure of information. A successful password attack can also lead to disclosure. On the other hand, a man-in-the-middle attack breaks the system's integrity, as it can alter the communicated data. We're going to focus on these 3 attacks in this room. And then the vulnerabilities are a broader spectrum, and exploited vulnerabilities have different impacts on the target systems. For instance, exploiting a denial of service vulnerability can affect the system's availability. Exploiting a remote code execution can lead to more severe damages. And it's important to note that a vulnerability by itself creates a risk. Damage can occur when the vulnerability is exploited. And we don't cover that in this particular room, but we're going to go into vulnerability in the very next section, which is vulnerability research. So we're going to talk about that in just a couple of videos. For now, we're just going to be focusing on how to exploit certain protocols and take them down. And so the very next one is going to be the sniffing attack. Sniffing attacks use network packet capture tools to collect information about the target. When a protocol communicates in clear text, the data exchange can be captured by a third party And a simple network packet capture can reveal information such as the content of private messages, login credentials, and any of those things if the data is not encrypted in transit. And based on what we learned in our last video for protocols, is that all of these protocols right here are clear text. So nothing is encrypted in these communications. So if you're lucky enough to capture anything on those protocols, most likely you're going to see stuff that is not encrypted. So TCP dump, Wireshark, Tshark are all great tools for packet capture. TCP dump is free and it's a command line interface tool. Wireshark has a GUI, graphical user interface, and then Tshark is a command line alternative to Wireshark. So it kind of does the same thing, meaning in the they have the same options, and you can type out your commands in a similar syntax that you would when you're inside of the Wireshark GUI, but it's a command line alternative essentially. So looking at email messages using POP3, for example, we're going to try to use TCP dump to attempt that. And in the terminal, we could use sudo, which makes you run it as a root user, TCP dump, the port number, and then A, and A is the ASCII format. So we just added that. Port 110 is the port that is used on POP3. Sudo, it runs it with root privileges, so on and so forth. So this is what it will look like when you run the actual command. And then from here, you start capturing packets that have to do with this specific port in ASCII format. And then you just see it right here. And then is there anything, password required? Do we see anything that they typed anything in here? iPass could be, this could be the password right here. That was the password that was sent in. So there we go, you caught the password by running a basic TCP dump. We saw the user, and then we got password right here. So just like that, you got the username and password. We removed the unimportant packets to help you focus better, and then we got it. So we got user Frank and password that. We could also use Wireshark to achieve the same results. So POP would be what you would put inside of the search terminal after you're looking at your PCAP file. So this is the specific capture file for a certain network or a certain interface, and then you just search for POP. POP3. You could also do I guess not POP3 because the protocol itself is POP. Then it literally shows it in the info. You don't even have to open up the packets. It's like right there. The user is Frank. The password is this. And this is pretty crazy because more often than not, the info section of Wireshark doesn't look at all like this. There's usually codes and different kind of jargon that you have to learn how to decipher, and you would have to open up the packet and then see what's inside it to try to determine what's going on. But very, very simply, I mean, it's literally right in the info section of Wireshark. So very, very easy and simple interface to use. Any protocol that uses clear text communications is susceptible. The only requirement is to succeed. The only requirement for this to succeed is to have a system between two communicating systems. This attack requires attention. The mitigation lies in adding an encryption layer on top of any network protocol. In particular, the TLS has been added to HTTP, FTP, SMTP, POP3, IMAP, and many others to secure it. Basically, transport layer security makes HTTP HTTPS, right? So FTP, I think, turns into SFTP, which is secure FTP, something like that. For remote access, Telnet has been replaced by Secure Shell. So these things replace the clear text protocols that are super weak to do. There's also several videos that I've done on Wireshark that go through the basics and then how to use packet filters and advanced visual filters to sift and sort through traffic. So it's a very, very cool series of videos, and I do recommend that you go see that if you have not used Wireshark at all and if you don't know how that works. What port do you want to add to sudo TCP dump to capture telnet traffic? And it's going to be port 23, which is the telnet port. And then the simplest display filter to only show IMAP traffic is very simply IMAP. You just put IMAP right here, and then it only shows you IMAP traffic. So very, very simple, straightforward, and easy to do. And now we are going to go into the man-in-the-middle attack. A man-in-the-middle attack, like the name implies, is essentially when we get in the middle of the communication of two different systems. So you have the client, you have the server, and then we're in the middle right here. So it says transfer $20 million to M, or transfer $20 to M, and then we sent it saying transfer 2,000 to M, and then it says okay, and then we sent back okay. But this person thinks that they've only requested 20, and then this one received the information that he should transfer 2,000. And who do you think is going to get that extra, 1980, right? This one, right in the middle, because they captured the communication, and then they probably altered where that extra money should transfer into. So very, very, very sneaky little attack, and you can do this in a lot of different ways. The attack is relatively simple to carry out if the two parties do not confirm the authenticity and integrity of each message. In some cases, the chosen protocol does not provide secure authentication or integrity checking. Moreover, some protocols have inherent securities that make them susceptible. Anytime that you browse over HTTP, you are susceptible to a man-in-the-middle attack. The scary thing is that you can't recognize it. Many tools would aid you in carrying on such as an attack, which is EtherCap or BetterCap. Man-in-the-middle can also affect the other clear text protocols such as FTP, SMTP, POP3. Mitigation against this attack requires a use of cryptography. The solution lies in proper authentication along with encryption or signing of the exchange messages, so signatures, certificates, tokens, things like that. With the help of public key infrastructure and trusted root certificates, transport layer security protects from man-in-the-middle attacks. So how many different interfaces does EtherCap offer? So we would have to go and look at that, and then it's how many ways can you invoke BetterCap. So let's first look at EtherCap. How many different interfaces are in EtherCap? Let's see. All right, so just looking at the about page of EtherCap, we have the supported distributions, which could be these things, and I counted, and there's 8 of them. So I would say that these are the interfaces. So EtherCap offers 3. Oh, actually, there you go. It offers 3 interfaces: traditional command line, GUI, and ncurses. So that's the answer. So we're going to type 3 here. And then in how many ways can you invoke BetterCap? So let's go look at that. And looking at the usage page of BetterCap, we see that you have the web UI, interactive mode, and scripting. And that's all that is available on this page. So BetterCap can be used in 3 different ways. And we got that here. And the answer to both of them was 3. So there you go. And we just got man-in-the-middle attacks. And this is pretty cool that we can do stuff like this. I'm pretty sure there's going to be rooms on EtherCap and BetterCap in future modules. So pretty excited to jump into that as well. Now let's talk about transport layer security. Transport layer security is how you protect the confidentiality and integrity of exchange packets. This is specifically the following approach can protect against man-in-the-middle attacks. So you have the SSL, which is the secure socket layer. Started when the World Wide Web started to see new applications such as online shopping and sending payment information. Netscape introduced it in 1994, and 1996 was the 3.0 version, and eventually more security was needed, so TLS protocol was introduced in 99. And before we explain what it is, let's see how they fit the networking model. So this is the networking model. This is the ISO OSI model, and then there's the TCP model that condenses all of these things into 4 layers basically. The first layer is physical layer, then it's data link, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and application layer. It's very hard to remember this at the first glance, so there's this acronym called please do not throw sausage pizza away. That's how you kind of remember this this way. I don't remember the reverse version of it, but there is a reverse version of it as well, which is all people something. I forget, but I just remembered please do not throw sausage pizza away, and that way you can kind of at least remember the order of things, and then from there you can try to determine what they actually stand for. But so the physical layer is, Ethernet cable is the actual physical infrastructure. The data link layer, the layer 2, is where MAC addresses come into play. The network layer is where IP addresses and IPv6, IPv4 come into play. Transport layer is TCP and UDP. Then you have the session layer where a session is created, the presentation layer where the SSL TLS kicks in, and then the actual application layer where everything else, the application that you use, the browser, the email client, all of those things kick in. And this is just a very basic overview of the OSI model. I highly recommend that you look into this. Networking is a very, very big deal in cybersecurity, so understanding these layers and what is done in what layer, where you can get information in what layer, that would be very, very helpful. So what we've talked about so far is clear text, and it's possible for anyone to access the network to capture and save information that way. The image below shows the network layers. The protocols that we've discovered so far are all about the application layer. So this is everything that we've talked about so far is all in layer 7, the application layer. So we can add encryption tools via the presentation layer, which is layer 6. Consequently, the data will be presented in an encrypted format instead of the original form. And because of the close relationship between TLS and SSL, one might be used instead of the other. However, TLS is more secure than SSL, and it's practically replaced SSL. We could have dropped SSL and just written TLS instead, but we will continue to mention the two to avoid any ambiguity because the term SSL is still in wide use. SSL certificates are very, very widely used to secure websites and you can manually install them on your website to make sure that it's secured. I did this a little bit because I was doing web development for a while, and you would buy an SSL certificate from, I think there's a website called ssls.com or ssls.org, and they just sell a variety of different SSL certificates, and you could buy it as cheap as like $5 per certificate. And that one certificate will secure one domain name, and it's not bad. It's still secure and it's still good, but a $5 certificate versus a $200 certificate, you can kind of expect that you get what you paid for. So we could have dropped that we already talked about. So an existing clear text protocol can be upgraded to use encryption, and we can use TLS to upgrade any of these things. And the following table lists the protocols that we've covered and their default ports, and then the list is not exhaustive, obviously. So this we already talked about. If you saw the last video, you should have seen all of these things. This is what the secured version of these protocols are. So HTTPS would be this, FTPS would be this, SMTPS. do you see the pattern here? You just add an S basically at the end of it, right? So POP3S, IMAP-S. And then the ports change, of course. So the secure ports are typically very, not just typically, very frequently and almost always, the ports are completely different. And what you'll see when you do a scan against something, you'll see that this port is open as well as this port is open. But if this is not open, so if this isn't open, more likely you're not going to have 443 be open. If 21 is not open, more likely you're not going to have 990 be open. So these are required for these to run when you do a scan, and you get to see that. Considering the case of HTTP, initially to retrieve a page, the web browser would need at least to perform these two steps: establish a TCP connection, and then send HTTP requests like GET and POST. HTTPS requires an additional step, so you establish the connection, establish the SSL connection, and then send the requests. So it's sandwiched between these two, and this is done through the presentation layer, as we already established, right? So you establish the connection, TCP UDP, you get your session, and then you have to first encrypt everything, and then you can make all of your requests. If to establish SSL TLS, the client needs to perform the proper handshake with the server based on RFC 6101. Establishment will look like this. So you send a hello, they send back a hello, and then they exchange their certificate or key exchange or certificate request, any of these things, and then the server responds with a hello and they exchange that information. The client sends back all of those things: certificate, client key exchange, certificate verification, and then that's been finished, and then the server finally responds, yeah, we're finished. So after establishing the connection, the client establishes the SSL TLS, and then the terms might look complicated, but we can simply look at it like this. So you have the client sends the client hello to the server to indicate its capabilities. The server responds with a server hello, indicating the selected connection parameters. The server provides its certificate. If the server authentication is required, the certificate is a digital file to identify itself. It's usually digitally signed by a third party. Moreover, it might send additional information necessary to generate the master key in its server key exchange message before sending the server hello that it is done with the negotiation. The client responds with a client key exchange, which contains additional information required to generate the master key. Furthermore, it switches to use the encryption and informs the server using the change cipher spec message, meaning now I want you to also start responding with encryption. The server switches to use encryption as well as inform the client that the cipher spec has been changed. And it shouldn't be too complicated, but if it is, it's all good. We don't need to have like a full in-depth understanding of this. We just need to understand that a secure key was generated and a third-party monitoring channel wouldn't be able to discover it. That's basically what kind of the big thing that you want to understand. Further communication between the client and server will be encrypted after that key has been generated. Consequently, once a TLS SSL handshake has been established, HTTP requests and exchange data won't be accessible to anyone watching the communication. That's kind of the big benefit, right? That's what we were trying to basically do. We were trying to go from clear text to encryption, and that's essentially what you would do. There is a use of keys involved and certificates, and that's how things get encrypted. As a final note, when we want this to be effective, we browse over the HTTPS. We rely on public certificates signed by certificate authorities trusted by the system. In other words, when we browse to TryHackMe over HTTPS, our browser expects the web server to provide a signed certificate from a trusted certificate authority, as per example, this is what it will look like. And so you could really do this by going up to your browser right here. So if let me kind of zoom in here. If I go up here and click on this little thing, you see the connection is secure. You click on that, and then it says certificate is valid. You click on that, and it'll open up the certificate information. And just like this, it says it's been issued to TryHackMe. There's no organizational unit or anything as a part of this certificate. It's been issued by E1. It's Let's Encrypt, issued on January 23rd, 2024. It expires on April of 2024. And this is important to understand because they need to renew their certificate every 3 months or 4 months in this case. And actually it's 3 months. So they renew it every 3 to 4 months. Google renews theirs every month because in case somebody is trying to hack through this, they need to change it so that by the time that things are figured out, or if anything does happen, it's now changed, and now the hacker needs to start from ground zero again and try to establish that connection and that decryption of the certificates, the new certificates. So the validity period of certificates are important. The SHA fingerprints are super important. SHA-1, SHA-1 is much weaker than SHA-256. The key that you see right here for SHA-1 is like much shorter, and if it's a shorter key, obviously it takes a shorter amount of time to decrypt it, so on and so forth. So this is how you can kind of be sure, and then you can just go check just like that what the certificate is. And this is literally what we just saw right here. And ever since that they created this room, you just saw that the certificate issuing authority has been changed, and they still they used to do it 1 year at a time, and now they're doing it every 3 to 4 months because they probably have been attacked way more frequently or people are trying to hack into TryHackMe, because the entire website has been centered around the conversation of hacking. So people are going to try to hack into TryHackMe. So a lot of things have changed ever since the last time that they did this, which is kind of important for us to understand. I'm glad I actually did that before we looked at the certificate, so that we can have that comparison here. So we can see the following, right? To whom is the the certificate issued? What's the company that used it? Who issued the certificate? And then the name of the authority that issued the certificate and the validity period. And you don't want to see a certificate that's been expired, for instance. And of course, there is shortened periods and long periods. You can buy a certificate that's a couple of years. And then a lot of people do that for convenience because they don't want to redo it, or they don't want to keep paying a cost to buy new certificates. But it has its downside as well, because it gives the attackers that much longer to attack your system and try to figure out what they can do and how to get into your system and your network. So it's very, very important. DNS can also be secured using TLS. What is the three-letter acronym of the DNS protocol that uses TLS? Okay, so I mean, just based on a simple Google search, what is DNS when you apply TLS? DNS over TLS is DOT. It's a network security protocol that encrypts domain name system queries and answers using the transport layer security protocol. And we got the same thing from Cloudflare, which is, I want to say that's probably where the generative AI of Google found its answer. So DOT, I'm going to use that and see if that's actually correct. And it is. So DOT, DNS over TLS. Very, very simple to understand. Okay, so now we're going to go to Secure Shell, which is one of my favorite things. Secure Shell SSH was created to provide a secure way for remote system administration. In other words, it lets you securely connect to another system over the network and execute commands. So the S in Secure Shell stands for secure. And you can confirm the identity of the remote server. Exchange messages are encrypted and can only be decrypted by the intended recipient. Both sides can detect any modification in the messages. The above 3 points are ensured by cryptography. And to use SSH, you just need an SSH server and an SSH client. So it needs to be available on both ends. On Linux, Mac OS, and MS Windows built after 2018, you can connect to an SSH server using this very simple command. And this command will try to connect to the server, and it'll log in, so on and so forth. There was a video that we did, I want to say last week, where we were trying to RDP into a Windows machine. And throughout that process, there was a couple of times that when I tried to do the RDP, there was a notification, and I think it even happened with SSH, that when we did it, said, oh, hey, this seems kind of fishy. I think you're subject to a man-in-the-middle attack. And that was a notification that came onto the screen. So this is what they mean over here, where they say that if anything happens, if something goes wrong or whatever, both sides can actually detect it, and both sides can understand the modification in the messages or an attempt that's happening, so on and so forth. So it is pretty secure. It's a great way of doing it. So the command is going to try to connect to this IP with this username, and if the SSH is listening on the default ports, then it'll ask you to provide the password, and once authenticated, you get to go into the system. Very, very simple. So mark at such and such, and then it's going to say, are you sure you want to connect? Because it doesn't ask for the password immediately. You first do this, and it says, you sure you want to connect? And then we say yes, and then it says, what's Mark's password? And then you would put in the password, and then you actually get in the system. So just like that, we would have it. And now, if the first time we connect to the system, we need to confirm the fingerprint of the public key to avoid man-in-the-middle attacks, as I explained earlier. This is what basically man-in-the-middle is. And in this particular case, we would need to secure it. And now, secure copy is a very interesting protocol as well if you want to transfer files over the command line interface via SSH. And this is what the syntax looks like. So secure copy mark at such and such to, so this is where it's going. This is where it's coming from, excuse me. And then this is where it's saving to. And you would need to have Mark's password in this case. So as soon as you enter this and you do this, it's going to ask you to transfer the file, or to enter the password first. and then it'll transfer the file. And this little squiggly line is just basically the root directory, like the home directory of, you know, wherever you are. It's going to transfer that file immediately there. So first you would say mark at this IP address, colon, and then the location of the file that you're trying to transfer over, which in this case is in the home mark directory, and this is the name of the file, the archive.tar.gz, and then that's being transferred to our root folder. And another sample would be the SCP backup yada 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 mark and this location, and this is taking from our machine. It's taking this file and it's going to put it inside Mark's folder, and it's kind of just basically the reverse version of this. And also in this case you need to know Mark's password to be able to do this. So you SCP document, and it's going to go into this location, and it says, okay, what's Mark's password? And then as long as you enter it correctly, it's going to send it over. So as a closing note, FTP could be secured using SSL TLS by using the FTPS protocol within port 990. It's worth mentioning that FTP can also be secured using the SSH protocol, which is the SFTP protocol. Okay, that's what I thought. At first I thought that I had it wrong. I thought maybe my dyslexia got the best of me, but there is both versions. There's two versions of this. There's SFTP and FTPS. So by default, the service listens on port 22 just like SSH. So use SSH to connect to this as Mark using the name R, and then find the kernel release. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I already started the machine at the beginning, but I need to also start the attack box so I can do this. And so this is going to be Mark's IP address based on the instructions right here. At the very, very bottom, it says connect to 10.10.14241, which is what we were issued at the very, very top. So that's going to be the IP address that we're going to use to connect to Mark. And then from there, we're going to just find the kernel release once we're in his system. And then it says use SSH to download the file book.txt from his system. How many kilobytes did SCP display as the downloaded size, which is what we also get when we run SCP. So I'm just going to wait for this to load real quick, and then from here we're going to run these two exercises. All right, so we got our attack box up and very basic command. So SSH mark at 10.10.14241, and so what's his password? I'm just going to copy the password, and then so zoom in here, and so this is what this looks like. Very simple. Now it says, are you sure you want to do this? And I say, yes, I do want to do this. And then let me see if I could just do paste here. There we go. Just like that, we got into Mark's system. And so now I can clear the screen, and from here we could do uname R, and that is his kernel version. And just like that, we're going to copy this, go here and paste it. Boom, just like that. Very, very simple. And so you can do a lot of cool commands. I mean, I'm not going to go into all of this stuff that you can do with SSH and things like this, but there's, you know, very, very basic commands like who am I? And it gives you the name of the username, ID, which gives you his permissions. And if you know what certain groups are, anything above 1,000 is just basic users. If it's a UID of 0, that means that this person has root permissions. You can do ls to see where you are and what's inside of where you are, and there's that book file that we want to get. So what we're going to do in this case is now we're going to download that book file from our machine, or excuse me, from his machine into our machine. So I can just do print working directory to see where it is, and it's home, mark, and then book.txt. And then so from here, I'm just going to exit, and I'm going to leave all of that on my screen. And now I'm going to do secure copy, and I'm going to do mark at 10.10.142.41, and then home, mark, and then book.txt, and then I'm going to do a dot, because I wanted to just save to my current directory, just like that. So very simple, right? So we ran ls to see where the book was, or to see what was inside the directory. You see that the book is right here. You do print working directory, so you know exactly what you need to put inside your command right here. And so it's in home, mark, and then there's the book. And then just like that, you type it and then just make sure that you include the dot at the very end, or you need to include where you want the file to be saved to, basically. Otherwise, secure copy is not going to work. It's going to give you an error message if you only use the first section and you don't declare where you want it to be saved to. So when we do that, press enter. It asks for his password again. And in this case, I'm just going to paste it one more time and see if that works. And it should. Oh, password denied. So maybe I what is it? XBTC49AB. There you go. So finished downloading. 415 kilobytes was downloaded at whatever per second. So 415 is the kilobyte that's was displayed on our screen. And just like that, we learned how to do SSH and we learned how to do secure copy. So, I mean, this is super, super introductory. It's kind of funny going through this information because we've gone through some really, compared to this, we've gone through some like really advanced exercises. So I didn't even realize that there was a junior pen tester module that was available, or a pathway that was available. And so this is teaching all the stuff that we've already probably learned. If you've seen any of the pen test videos from this channel, you've seen this multiple times, so you're very, very familiar with this. But now this is kind of like just a super fun foundational fundamentals type of an introduction to secure shell, which I think is also very useful. It's nice to go over the fundamentals every once in a while. Now we are going to go into the password attack task. So we've looked at the packet captures, man-in-the-middle attacks, as well as how they can be mitigated. The third type of attack is called a password attack. Many protocols require authentication. It's providing who you claim to be or proving who you claim to be. When we're using protocols like POP3, we should not be given access to the mailbox before verifying ourselves. So the example from the protocols and servers room, the very first one, repeated below for the convenience, was basically the last room that we released, or the last video that we released on this. In this example, we identified the user Frank and the server authenticated us. So telnet on this IP, and then on POP3 port, and telnet is a clear text protocol as we established. And so trying to connect it to the IP, escape character is such and such, mail server such and such, who's the user. So you need to declare who the user is, and then you declare who the password is. And then you can run a command such as stat, which shows you how many emails there are, and then what the size of the messages are. And then you can list it, and it says this, and then this again, and then retrieve the first email. Okay, and here's the email. From the mail server to Frank, sending email with telnet, hey, just wanted to say hi. And then you can do quit, and then it'll close the connection for you. Very, very simple. Something you know, such as a password or a PIN code, is required to be able to do this. Something you have, such as a SIM card or RFID card, or on a USB dongle. And then something you are, which is the fingerprint and iris. These are the things that you need at least, either one of the following or a combination of two of the following. So if you don't have the password or the PIN code, I guess you would need the other two things, right? So this is going to focus on password attacks, something that we know, so the target would know. And if you revisit the communication with several previous servers using protocols like telnet or any of those things, we always need a password to gain access. And we just did SSH, so you just saw that. We also did secure copy, and you just saw that. So based on the 150 million usernames and passwords leaked from Adobe breach in 2013, the top 10 are these, which is just insane to think about. All of these are very, very basic. Password is very basic. Adobe 123 is very basic. QWERTY is really interesting because it's just a left hand. If you take your left hand from your keyboard and just go up, Q is the pinky finger, W would be the ring finger, E would be the middle finger, R would be your index, and then you have T and Y, which is all next to each. So this is all just top row letters of a keyboard. And then just really silly, stupid passwords. So yeah, those are just some very, very basic passwords. Only 2 passwords are related to Adobe and its products, but the rest are generic. You might think that this has changed over the past decade. However, all of these things are still super common choices for many users, and others haven't realized that QWERTY is not a secret. It's used by many as their password. Attacks against passwords are usually done either through password guessing, that you kind of are doing yourself. There's the dictionary attack, which is you would use a dictionary, which is a TXT document, like a text document that is filled with a bunch of these passwords. For example, 14 million or 150 million different passwords. And then you use that as a password guessing attempt. And then you have the brute force attack, which is the most exhaustive, time consuming, where an attacker can go as far as trying all possible character combinations, which grows very, very quickly, or number combinations, or a lot of things. And there's tools that can help you do that. So you'll tell them that, between these characters and these characters, or if you're trying to figure out somebody's PIN and it's a 4-digit PIN, you say, okay, I need you to create a 4-digit or all the combinations of a 4-digit PIN using, the numbers on the keypad, and then it'll create all that combinations for you, and then from there you can brute force and try to get it that way. There's lists of compiled passwords. There's the RockU list, which is super famous, and it comes with every installation of Kali Linux. And there's also the sec lists that's available on GitHub, and that has a bunch of different lists on it too, including password lists and username lists and directory lists and a lot of things like that. So this is just insane, and it's become pretty convenient to hack somebody's password. Hydra is a good one, and it's typically good for online hacking. So if you want to break down somebody's hash, like their password hash that you've downloaded, and you want to do it offline, you could use something like John the Ripper. But if you want to do it online, you can use Hydra. And then you would give it the username, the password for the password list, and then the server IP address or the server domain, and then the service that you want to use, which would be, SSH, for example, or something like that. Then you have, and we've already talked about this, so the host name or the IP address we talked about, service indicates the service that you want to do. So this is kind of what it looks like. So Hydra, Mark, and this is the password file that we want to use to hack into Mark, and then the IP address and an FTP. And we're going to try to hack into the FTP service on this IP address using Mark's username and any password that might be available in the RockU list. And then a similar would be done just if you wanted to do it the online version, where you do FTP : / the IP address, identical to the previous example, and this is exactly the same as declaring it like this. And then you can still do the same thing with SSH, and use, in this case, Frank as the username, and then trying to use everything that's inside RockU to log into Frank on SSH. So the patterns are very, very similar, and I mean, pretty standard if you think about them. It's kind of scary how easy it is. So some additional optional arguments. So we have the S and then the port number to specify a non-default port for the service in question. So if you wanted to do FTP, and then you want to now say, okay, use this other port for it. V or VV is for verbose, very verbose. Shows the username and password combinations that are being tried live on the screen. It's very convenient to see the progress, especially if you're still not confident of the command line syntax. Then TN is where N is the number of parallel connections to the target. It'll create 16 threads to connect to the target, which just makes it work faster. And then D is for debugging, to get more detailed information about what's going on. It'll kind of, if it tries to connect to a closed port, timing out, D will reveal that immediately. In addition to combining like D with V will give you a lot of good information on the screen as the attack is going on, so that you know what's going on. Once the password is found, you can issue Control-C to end the process, so it stops, and then from there you can just move on. In TryHackMe tasks, we expect any attack to finish within less than 5 minutes. However, the attack would usually take longer in real-life scenarios. Options for verbosity and debugging can be pretty helpful if you want Hydra to update about the progress and what's going on. Attacks against login systems can be carried out efficiently using a tool such as THC Hydra combined with a suitable word list. Mitigation against such attacks can be sophisticated and depends on the target system. Password policy, so use complicated passwords or force people to use complicated passwords. Account lockout, that locks the account after a certain number of failed passwords or failed login attempts. Throttling authentication attacks delays the response to a login attempt. A couple of seconds of delay is tolerable for someone who knows the password, but they can severely hinder automated tools. Using CAPTCHA, excellent. Using two-factor authentication, I'm glad they mentioned that here. Excellent, meaning you try to log in and then immediately says, okay, we sent you a code to your cell phone and you need to go answer that. Using the public certificate for authentication, it works very well with SSH. There are many other approaches, but these are just some of them. My favorite ones are this. Like, this is a really, really good one. And even this can still be hacked, but it's just really, really strong, because by the time, if you know, even if somebody does a man-in-the-middle attack against somebody's cell phone number to be able to capture the two-factor authentication, which is what happened in one of the last episodes of Mr. Robot, where they caught the two-factor authentication pin that was sent to the cell phones of like these really rich people. Even if they do that, that person still gets notified that something is going on. They got this two-factor authentication, what? And like they're trying to now go and try to hack in. So it's pretty crazy when you think about it. But it's at least now you kind of have a red flag that showed up that you're like, oh, okay, maybe, you know, I need to, excuse me, maybe I need to go check out what just happened here. So we learned that one of the email accounts is lazy. What is the password used to access the IMAP service on 10.10.142.441? So we are going to use Hydra, and the password itself, or not the password, excuse me, the user. And then we're going to go on the IMAP port, and we should have that. Where is it? There's something that showed it to us. There we go. IMAP is 143. And it's not IMAP S, which is 993. So we're going to go IMAP 143 is the port that we want to use. And then we're going to use Hydra in this particular case to see what we can do. So here's the command here. All right, so based on what the instructions were, this is going to be what our command is going to look like. So Hydra L, the person that wants to log in, which is lazy. P, which is the password file. In this case, this is going to be a raw queue. And then the IP address that we want to log in, and then the port, which is 143, and press enter. Oh, well, hold on. All right, so we'll create the same. I'm just going to replace 143 with IMAP this time, see if that works. And then we'll even add the little V to see if anything works. Okay, it didn't immediately stop, so I think it's going to actually try to go through this. And yeah, let's see how long it takes. Ooh, look at that. So it's trying all these different passwords now. It still hasn't found one, I don't think, because it would tell you if it found one. But it's trying all these passwords. So let's see how long it takes for it to, oh, there it is. Just like that. So boom, close that out. And the password is butterfly. Very easy. Very lazy of lazy to use the password butterfly for their password. And there you go, that's it, just like that. We got a password attack in using Hydra on the IMAP service. And I mean, pretty scary, right? How easy it is, how quick it is. So let us now move into the summary and wrap the room. All right, so in this room, we covered a few different attacks against some of the weakest protocols that exist. And so we talked about the sniffing attack, the man-in-the-middle attack, the password attack. We focused on both the attack and the mitigation steps. We're going to go into vulnerability research very quickly. We've done several videos on Metasploit already. I have not done, I don't think, videos on Burp Suite, but we can always just go and redo those rooms and make sure that we have those. So I'm just going to keep going through all of this stuff and just make sure that everything's recorded for you guys. And then you could always just drop a comment to let me know which one you want me to do, and I'll make a note of it, and then we'll just keep going from there. So this is the list of the protocols and the secured version of those protocols. So FTP, FTPS, the port, and then of course the data security and the encrypted version of it. And just the same thing, right? So HTTP, clear text, and then the HTTPS is encrypted. IMAP, clear text, IMAPs, encrypted, so on and so forth. And then so you have SFTP, SSH, SMTP, and then SMTPS, and then Telnet, of course, which is clear text. So this is just it's not the exhaustive list, but it is a strong list of the most commonly used protocols. And Hydra, just one of the most efficient tools to be able to hack into somebody's account using a word list, which is pretty gnarly. And these are just some of the most commonly used options for Hydra, but you can always just go check out the Hydra tool itself and the manual page for Hydra, and you'll get a lot of great information from that. And just like that, we have now wrapped our room for protocols and servers 2. And the next thing that we're going to talk about or go into is going to be the network security challenge, which we're just going to use all the tools that we learned inside of this module to be able to make some hacks and do some hacking activities. And from there, we can move on to the vulnerability research modules, which should be pretty interesting and exciting. So hopefully you found a lot of value from this and learned some good stuff. If you are studying for your PenTest Plus or Ethical Hacker or Security Analyst certifications, I do invite you to join our community, where we have a nice growing community and it's been growing very quickly. You can like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, and you will get notified the next time that a video comes out. And all of these videos are actually very useful for the certification exams, as well as your day-to-day job as a security analyst or a penetration tester. You're going to be using these strategies and these tools very, very frequently on a day-to-day at your actual job when you get into the world of cybersecurity. And I hope that you're trying to do that. I hope you're trying to get into the world of cybersecurity, or at the very least, you're trying to learn how to do these things and become efficient at them, which in either case, these are going to be very helpful for you. So I do invite you to like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell. And of course, if you have any questions, drop a comment. If you have any statements that you want to make, or if you want to say something, drop a comment. I welcome all comments. I respond to all comments. And if you have any questions, I definitely will answer your question in the comment section. I've given some pretty long responses in the comments because people do ask questions about these things. So whatever I can do to help, I definitely am here for you, and I will do my very best to help you because we are both in this journey together, and we're trying to get better at this together. And it's always more fun when you have somebody that goes along the path with you instead of you having to go by the path alone. So I invite you to join me, and I am very, very humbled for you to actually be here and would love to have you as a part of the community. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker. And this was the protocols and servers room of the Junior Pen Tester Pathway for Network Security in TryHackMe. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I will see you in the next video. Later.